Right, this is a Tama Star maple shell drum kit. Obviously custom built. I think most of the Star drums are, apart from just some maybe regular size drums. Let's start with all the drum sizes. The bass drums are 24 diameter by 15 inches deep. So 1 inch shorter than what would normally be a 24 by 16 bass drum. Now, personally, if I could have 14-inch depth bass drums like the old-fashioned sizes, I would, because I think they sound better, because the front head responds quicker when there's not too much depth in the bass drum. But there's a problem, and that problem is the tom-tom holder. And if we don't put that mount way to the front of the bass drum, I end up with the toms in my lap and I can't play it. Mainly because I use, well, by today's standards I use large size tom-toms, but by yesterday's standard they're normal. So it's just the way fashion has gone, and hence why tom-tom holders are put like closer to you, so the small drums are close enough to be playable. But this is a problem for me, so I have to have at least a 15-inch depth bass drum, purely so the kit sets up properly, but it's nothing to do with sound. I think the fashion is to have deep bass drums these days. It actually works the other way. It ends up sounding thinner and smaller because that front head doesn't react so quickly. If you don't use a front head, then it doesn't matter, and actually would probably be more beneficial. But I use a front head, so I need that head to respond very quickly to get all the bottom end out of the drum. So those are the bass drums. Tom-tom sizes. Well, this little one is, now I always forget the size. I know this may sound silly, but I know it's a 10-inch, but some of my drums are 6.5 and some of them are 7. Don't ask me why. That's a 12 by 8. That's a 13 by 9, 14 by 10, 15 by 11, 16 by 12, 18 by 14. So the concept is that the shape of the drum is always the same. The depth is, what is it? It's 4 inches shorter than the diameter. Again, same reason. If the shells are too long, then they actually end up sounding a bit thinner because that bottom head doesn't respond quick enough. The other issue is that if these toms are too deep, then I have to have them higher up, and then it makes it hard to play. So these to me seem to be, I think, the best compromise of depth size to head size. The old-fashioned sizes used to be, I think I made a mistake. Sorry, 12 by 9, 13 by 10, 14 by 11, 15 by 12, 16 by 13, I think that's it, 18 by 14. So that's it, because it's 1 inch deeper than the old-fashioned standards, which was 12 by 8, 13 by 9, 14 by 10. Although that was always a 15 by 12 for some reason. So those are the toms. 6 are mounted, so they have a lot of play in them, which helps their tone. And the floor tom is a regular floor tom, but it's also still on these legs that they've designed, which make it wobble around, which makes it work a bit better. This is a gong drum. This is a 20-inch by 14 shell. It has a reinforcing hoop on one side only because there's only one head, and I use a timpani head, and it goes boom, and that's what we like. It lasts forever. Snare drums. This is exactly the same shell as these, which is a solid. It's not solid maple; it's maple ply. This is a 14 by 6.5, 8 lug, This is a 10 by 5.5, and this is a 12 by 5.5 too, I think. I think so. That might be a 10 by 5. I'm not actually sure, but because there's other drums which are a little different. And these are octobans, made from octoban material, whatever that is. All the heads are Remo Ambassador, as you can see, clear on the toms, top and bottom, clear on the bass drums, front and back, clear on the top of the octobans, and the snare drums are coated Ambassador, as you can see. So they work really well when one wants to play brushes. You can. That doesn't really work, right? And as I said before, the timpani, the gongo is a timpani head. I think that's all for the drums themselves. Cymbals. Every set of my cymbals are slightly different, only because of circumstance. The cymbals I like to use are the Almond series, which you'll see here is written Almond, but actually this may say Avidas, that's actually an Almond. That is a Almond. This is actually an Avidas. I think that is also an Avidas. This is an Almond. Now, you may wonder, why do the Almond say Avida Zildjian, but the real Avida Zildjians have the big A written on them? So, the reason is because the Almond series was discontinued, much to my dismay. So, what they do for me, as a special customer, they do make me, when they can, they make almonds, but they have to stamp them. There's two ways they'll stamp them. One is, we don't have one here, interesting. It's called prototype. Sound something prototype, never remember what they're called. Or they'll just put an Avida Zildjian stamp on them, because it would be very confusing for people if they see almond and they go to buy them and they can't buy them. So that's the only reason. This cymbal is a very special cymbal. This was made in 1979, and when my first visit to the Zildjian factory in '79, I found two of these, and they're just stunning. They're beautiful. They're called swish knockers, but they're a 24-inch size. They've tried to make them like that in recent years, and they're nowhere near the same. So these are kind of rather special. This is something. So that's a pretty special cymbal. The other kind of special cymbal is this one. This is a remake of a cymbal they used to call the Oriental Trash. Now they discontinued those too. And I happen to have a couple of the original ones, which actually look a little different. They have a different color to them for some reason. But they made these specially for me only last year, I think. And they're absolutely beautiful. And something I like to do, this is a trash former. It's a pretty interesting, it sounds like a miniature gong. And what I do is I piggyback this with this cymbal. And this sounds like this. So it makes a real dustbin type sound, which I think is actually very cool for certain things. So that's what I've been doing recently. If you come and see the drum kit in 2 years' time, it'll probably be totally different because I kind of change around stuff. But for the moment, that's what it is.
Hardware?
I think that's it. Hardware?
Yeah.
All Tama. I use the RoPro series. Mainly because they're easier to memory lock. What's this? No, they're all, yeah, sometimes there's one, yeah. Their latest system, they have this kind of L rod on the cymbal stand, but there's no way to memory lock it. So when we're on the road, we have to make sure everything is set up exactly the same every night.
Okay.
So I actually prefer this range of hardware from Tama. It is a Star snare drum stand. I think that's pretty cool. And then a couple of custom pieces. What we do with this is to try to save on stands, because that just makes it messy and occupies a lot of space. I try to make everything as compact as possible, so we have one stand, and I use a little bit of their tower power system here. The main stand is supporting the octobans. This tower power system is supporting this cymbal, which is actually quite a lot of weight actually. That cymbal alone is probably about 9 or 10 pounds. And then it's also supporting this piccolo snare, all on one stand. It's kind of what I call racing car technology, you know, we're pushing it to the limit. So that's a little custom piece which they make up for me, or I make at home.
Okay.
And the other piece is the gong drum stand. I always felt that the gong drum stand was always too convoluted and too big and very hard to actually reset. It would never be quite the same and it would be unbalanced. So again, same thing, I used a cymbal stand, put a piece of tower power stuff on it, and then both these angle pieces come off the same piece of piping here. And again, you know, it has enough give in it. Hardware shouldn't be too rigid. It'll really affect the sound of the drums.
Okay.
In fact, when I use at home, I have various different types of kits, and one of them is literally a bebop kit, and that's what I play when I do straight ahead things, straight ahead gigs. Usually a single bass drum, 18-inch bass drum, 12, 13, 15, 16 toms. The cymbals I use are actually different. They're Zildjian Constantinople, and I use the new flush bass stands, like the 60s. It really helps the sound of the cymbals, especially when you're playing at a very quiet volume. At this level, with the fusion, with a guitar player and a keyboard player, electric bass, then this is all fine. You're not going to hear the subtleties because everything is much louder. But when you're playing with acoustic bass and acoustic piano, we play much lighter, and therefore the tone, you really notice the difference in the tone of the cymbals if they're on a big heavy stand or if they're on a flush bass stand that kind of wobbles a bit. There's something to be said about the wobbling. It may look unstable, but as long as it doesn't fall over, it's great. Same with the drums. I mean, that's one of the reasons why old, 60s Gretsch kits and Ludwig kits, Rogers kits, Slingerland, they all sound so great because the hardware was much lighter. You hit that rack tom, the thing would wobble. The floor tom was a little bit static actually. That's why it was always difficult to get the rack and the floor to sound like they were part of the same kit. It used to bug me terribly. And it's just physics. That's really what it is. I could show you an experiment, which you might find very interesting. We're going to take a floor tom like this. I hope I can do this without it being. I can try. I need a special piece of gear for this, right? Okay, so let's hear the tom-tom like that. So it's a very long sustain. Now, let's take one of these legs. One second. I put all these nuts in so they can't be undone by accident. I'm just going to remember it's 1, 2. Okay. I'll take this off. And I'm going to do. How can I do this? Ooh, can I do it this way? No, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do that. Okay. Now we've taken out this piece.
Yes.
Isn't that incredible? And that's just one leg.
Yeah.
All the tone is gone. So that shows you why tom legs are shaped like that in the first place. That's a pretty cool thing to do. Courtesy of Don Lombardi from DW who showed me that actually. I thought that was, I actually never knew that before. That was pretty stunning.
Okay, so it's really fixed. It's really fixed. I mean,
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Okay, so see the problem
can't
is
undo it.
when all the stuff goes in the case, you take the leg off, right?
Yeah.
And you put that in a case.
Yeah.
When it's traveling around, something can easily hit that, and then you've lost your memory on it.
Yeah.
So that was one little modification I had to make because I don't think that was really well. You know, it's easier to it's harder to change. Obviously, you need something like that.
Exactly.
But at least that ensures it's going to be the same every day.
Yeah.
So the whole kit has it. All the
True.
tom-tom holders.
Okay.
I
see that.
I seem to have lost all of those now. But anyway, that's it. Right. So that shows you a little bit about the
Yes. The
sustain.
kids. And the sustain. Okay.
Very important.
One last thing I'd like to ask you about is the rug, which it isn't. The idea, you know.
Oh, this.
Yeah.
Yes, sounds good, doesn't it?
Great rug.
Well, you see, I believe all acoustic instruments should be set up on wood. Bass, congas, anything really, cello. It needs a reflective surface. It needs if you put the drum kit onto a carpet, you're already compromising the sound of the drum kit. So this is a 3/4 inch ply plinth. It's actually 4 pieces with hinges. So this is a split pin here that comes out. So the 2 pieces go apart, and then you can fold them up like that. And then they even go into an SUV. Doesn't have to be that big, the car. But it means that you can set up the kit the same all the time. You can drill holes for the spurs so the bass drums don't move, or the hi-hat if you only use one bass drum. Plus it gives you a consistent surface to play on. And I think that's very, very important. So then the drum, before you put a microphone anywhere near it, is going to give you the full frequency response of the drum. The carpet will take off some of the transients, some of the top end. And microphones don't like that. You know, you want to preferably put a microphone up or many microphones up and just put the faders up. Leave them flat and they sound great. If the drum kit is tuned well, and if the right choice of mic is used, then EQ is then optional. That's the thing. Instead of EQ being a repair job, which in many cases we do use it for, it's nice to start the day with a flat channel and it sounds, wow, that already sounds good. And then it's up to you whether you want to mold the sound a little bit, which is what I do when I'm recording. I'll make sure I have a good basic sound, all the mics, tuning and everything, and then I'll go, right, what does this drum kit need for the kind of music that we're playing, or the kind of song even. And then I'll then go to the equalizer and do what I do to it and make it sound even more wonderful. That's it.